This is an electric vehicle panel for this session, so that's what we'll be talking about. We have 4 presenters on the topic. So first is Blake Thomas. He's the Alternative Transportation Program Specialist in Governor Herbert's Office of Energy Development. His research aims to promote solutions that can provide positive air quality results, allow for efficient utilization of Utah's diverse energy portfolio. Blake holds a bachelor's in environmental studies, a minor in sustainable systems, and a master's in information of ecosystem science and management from Utah State. That is definitely a mouthful. Next will be Will Tour. Will is the director of the transportation program at the Southwest Energy Efficiency Project. He's also a member of the Colorado Air Quality Control Commission. He served as Boulder County Commissioner from 2005 to 2012 and Mayor of Boulder, Colorado from 1998 to 2004. Will served on the board of the Denver Regional Council of Governments from 1998 to 2012, including serving as board chair. He led DRCOG, Dr. Cog? Dr. Cog, I don't know what the acronym, DRCOG, and adopting goals for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles traveled in the region. He received his PhD in physics from the University of Chicago in 1992. Our third presenter is Monica Clean. Monica is the dealer marketing representative at NRG EVgo. NRG EVgo is a startup business of energy industry leader NRG Energy, a Fortune 500 company. EVgo and NRG Energy are investing $150 million to build an electric vehicle infrastructure in the United States that includes level 2 and DC fast charging stations and retail locations, multifamily communities, homes, and offices. Our last presenter will be Steve Kaiser. He's the CEO and president of Utah Paperbox, representing the 4th generation of the Kaiser family to the business. Formerly, Kaiser served as UPT's vice president of sales, a position held since 1998. Utah Paperbox is a board converter, manufacturing folding cartons and boxes, and specializes in litho lamination. The company is headquartered in Salt Lake City, Utah. So, everybody, welcome, and we'll get started.
Jake, thank you for bearing through those acronyms. There's a lot of acronyms in the alternative transportation world. I'm excited for Dr. Tor to tell us what Dr. Cog means, so I'll keep my presentation short. My name is Blake Thomas, and I work in Governor Herbert's Office of Energy Development. And I was hired as the Alternative Transportation Specialist in September, and that was a newly created position in Governor Herbert's office with the aim of focusing more on alternative transportation and diversifying our transportation systems in the state. So our office's role is all of the above. We focus on energy conservation and efficiency. We also spend a lot of time working on renewables, conventional and advanced fossil fuel resources, nuclear infrastructure, energy storage, and battery technologies, and now a new emphasis with transportation. Our office is an economic development office, and so we help move that forward through policy, planning, and engagement rather than regulation. So we have, which is rare for a state energy office, 6 full-time staff that are dedicated to energy efficiency and renewable energy, program activities and outreach, and other staff with partial time into those efforts as well, including an energy analyst, grant coordinator, and our executive and deputy directors. As far as the energy efficiency and conservation team, Jennifer Gardner is our manager of our state programs and oversees those projects, and we have 2 people in the office who work on building efficiency. I'm in transportation, and then we also have a person who focuses on agricultural energy efficiency, and a person who focuses on renewable energy and administers the state tax credits. So Governor Herbert in 2010 delivered his 10-year strategic energy plan. That was a statewide collaborative effort and had dozens of stakeholder groups involved, and out of that plan came 8 recommendations. And one of the 8 recommendations was to diversify transportation fuels and build a transportation infrastructure and a fleet to meet the needs and demands of future generations. And another one of the recommendations from that plan was to develop an energy efficiency and conservation plan. This plan was released in 2014. It was a similar statewide collaborative effort that had a responsibility matrix associated with it, and there were 5 subcommittees, one of which was focused on transportation, specifically alternative transportation. In the first year of this plan, our office, the Office of Energy Development, has advanced 22 of the 26 recommendations that were outlined, and 5 of our 6 transportation recommendations are currently in progress. So our office, our recent focus is more generally outside of just electric vehicles. Our focuses on alternative transportation include the creation of line position. Our office provides Utah Transit Authority passes for all of the staff and Green Bike passes. If you're not familiar with Green Bike, that is a bike sharing program in Salt Lake City. We sponsored a Green Bike station. We provide state grant money to Utah Clean Cities to travel around and to host natural gas vehicle training workshops and to host the Idle Free Fleets Conference. And we've also provided funding to the National Energy Foundation this year. They've recently hosted a K-12 teachers workshop with an alternative transportation fuel curriculum. I know they have a booth out here, and I think have some materials from that. And we also have partnered with the Salt Lake Chamber, who's been heavily involved with transportation issues and clean air issues. So more of a state focus. In November 2014, Governor Herbert declared the month of November the Alternative Fuel Vehicle Awareness Month. And at the last legislative session, there was a bill that passed that required by 2018 that all state vehicles, 50% of new state vehicles be high efficiency. This past year, just recently, the state distributed over $500,000 for clean fuel vehicle grants and loans. And since 2008, the state of Utah has given out $10.1 million in incentives for natural gas vehicles. So focusing now on zero tailpipe emission vehicles or electric vehicles, our office has been heavily involved with outreach. We recently hosted an infrastructure workshop for builders and developers to come to learn how to incorporate charging equipment and stations at their workplace and how to make it economical for them. We launched Utah Drives Electric, which you can visit at utah.driveselectric.com. We've also dabbled in the Twitter world now, and I tweet occasionally at Utah EVs, which I'm still trying to figure Twitter out, so don't judge us on our Twitter page. But this website, the purpose of it is to be educational. It has a charging map where you can put in a location in the state and a radius and what type of charging you're looking for. And the stations will come up and tell you whether they're free or if you pay for them, who the provider is, what the access is to them. We also have a vehicle guide that has just the general vehicle specs for electric vehicles that are available in the state of Utah. And about every quarter, I check that with dealerships across the state to make sure that it's up to date with what vehicles are actually available in Utah's market. We have an open comment section for testimonials from EV drivers. And we also, one of the more exciting features, which is actually under construction right now, it should be running early next week, is a savings calculator where you can go in and put your current car's average miles per gallon and how many miles you drive in a day and select one of those Utah available electric vehicles, and the calculator will then tell you your daily, weekly, monthly, and annual carbon savings and your cost savings compared to the price of gasoline in Utah. And it will also let you know about the tax credits that are available to take advantage of. Our office has been heavily involved with the deployment of electric vehicle supply equipment. We've partnered with UCARE, which is the Utah Clean Air Partnership, and have also partnered with Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County to put in, we helped put in 3 of the state's first fast chargers, which Monica we'll talk about more later. And recently, in past months, we've received grant funding to install level 2 stations at Utah Valley University, just right at the entrance of the university off of Interstate 15, and also at a central location at Utah State University, with the goal of building up an I-15 corridor to help alleviate range anxiety for drivers. This image here is a screenshot from our map for within Salt Lake City for just a small part of the city, and kind of gives you an idea of the stations that are available. Right now in the state, there's a $1,500 income tax credit available for anyone who purchases an electric vehicle. And the good news on that front is that in 2014 it was $605. So the state has decided to more heavily incentivize electric vehicles. There's a $1,000 credit for plug-in hybrids. So EV meaning battery electric vehicles such as the Nissan Leaf, and then plug-in would be the Chevy Volt. There's also a $1,500 income tax credit for to convert your car to electric, and also in the past legislative session, the public utility definition was defined, where an entity or business that has a charging station or electric vehicle supply equipment is not considered a public utility. And this was a really big development for the state, because now if you want to own a charging station, you can sell that power and your station can be profitable and you don't have to be considered a utility. And so the results from these initiatives have shown, as you can see here, almost exponential growth each quarter of electric vehicle sales, with the Nissan Leaf being the more dominating vehicle. And these trends we expect to continue, and hope that they do continue, given the effects that our air quality and inversions cause. I wanted to finish quickly with two quotes just recently that illuminate the governor's support of alternative fuel vehicles, and especially electric vehicles. Just a few weeks ago in Park City was the Conference on Electric Roads and Vehicles, and it brought academics and policymakers from around the world together to talk about these technologies. And Governor Herbert told them, the innovative technologies and products you develop represent two key areas of interest for Utah and the nation, namely economic development and environmental impact. And just recently, we have Steve Kaiser with us today, who will speak more about Leaders for Clean Air. The governor supported this initiative, which launched in January officially, and he said we all have to do our part to improve our air quality, and Utah's business community is stepping up with a new initiative to move the ball forward. By working to make it more practical to own an electric vehicle in Utah, Leaders for Clean Air is helping to advance an important new technology that has the potential to boost our air quality efforts. So that's a really high-level overview of the efforts that our office and the state have been involved with to help promote the deployment of electric vehicles. And here's my contact information. Will be available for Q&A at the end. And I'll turn it over to Monica, or Will. Sorry, yeah.
Well, Blake gets my PowerPoint up. So DRCOG is the Denver Regional Council of Governments, the analog to the Wasatch Front Regional Council. And wonderful organization, but you have board meetings where you've got 55 elected officials from all across the region, and you're all trying to work together. And after one particularly painful meeting, the executive director at the time, a guy named Bill Vidal, ended the meeting by saying, if DRCOG was really a doctor, he'd be a proctologist. So I'm Will Torr with the Southwest Energy. There's supposed to be some laughing there. Will Torr with the Southwest Energy Efficiency Project, based in Colorado, but we work in 6 states across the Southwest on advancing energy efficiency in buildings and electric utilities and industry and transportation. Partner with Utah Clean Energy in our work in Utah. And what I want to do is first sort of recognize how remarkable it is what's happening in this area around electric vehicles. If you went back a few years, and auto companies were figuring out where they were going to start rolling out electric vehicles outside of the West Coast, Utah wasn't on their initial list. And it was the fact that there were so many people in the Salt Lake region who were really enthusiastic and excited about EVs that put Utah onto the list of places that were getting electric vehicles in those early years. And the Salt Lake area has emerged as one of the top 10 markets for electric vehicles in the country. Nobody expected that, and it's a remarkable thing. And it's partially a testament to the hard work of some of the people in this room. So, the reason why we're enthusiastic about electric vehicles is because we see that in addition to their economic benefits, there's really some huge environmental benefits that come from fleet electrification, particularly as we move to greater levels of renewables on the grid. And if you look in Utah and you ask the question, what do electric vehicles actually mean for air quality? There can be some debate about, are you just trading a tailpipe for a very long tailpipe to the coal-fired power plant? And some people will argue, and we see stories in the paper occasionally arguing, that there's not a great air quality benefit from switching to electric vehicles. And I think that there's a couple of responses to that. One very specific response for the Wasatch Front. In 2013, SWEEP did a very detailed analysis of the air quality impacts of electric vehicles based upon the electric generating units that you have in this area and which one of those electric generating units are located within the airshed of Salt Lake and the Wasatch Front and the areas that really have the significant air quality problem. And when we looked at that, what we determined was that electric vehicles hands down had enormous air quality benefits for this region. We had essentially zero emissions of volatile organic compounds, about an 80% reduction in NOx emissions, which is really important because NOx is a major precursor to particulates, and you had significant reductions in both PM10 and PM2.5, which is your biggest particulate problem. So really significant air quality benefits, even given today's electric utility mix. And as we look out into the future, as the grid gets cleaner, as we start seeing more coal plant retirements, the benefit just grows larger over time. We also took a look at the question of what was the impact of electric vehicles on greenhouse gas emissions, and looked at all of the states in the Southwest. And unsurprisingly, we saw that the states that were starting out with the cleanest power mix had the largest reduction in GHG emissions. So Arizona and Nevada and Colorado, you got the largest reductions. But in Utah, you still got a reduction, about a 10% reduction in GHG emissions based on the grid mix. And again, over time, that reduction gets larger and larger as the grid gets cleaner. We also think that there's a huge opportunity around pairing electric vehicles with solar PV. And if you pair those together, you end up with essentially emission-free transportation. There's still some embodied energy in making the car, but your emissions per mile averaged over all those miles is very, very low. And it turns out that at least in these early years of electric vehicles, where we're looking at the early adopters of EVs, there's a huge crossover between solar adopters and EV adopters. No one has done a large-scale survey of this, but a number of auto dealers have surveyed their customers, typically found 30 to 50% of their EV customers also have PV. So in practice, a large number of the EVs that are out there are basically running on solar. I think it's important to make sure that net metering rules are structured so that they really facilitate being able to put enough solar on a property to power not just the property, but also the vehicle when you add a vehicle. And over time, I think that there's great potential for solar and storage together to play a really important role along with EVs. There's some fascinating work that's been done with a group called Snug Home, who have developed an online calculator that looks at the economic impacts of combining home energy efficiency improvements, home solar, and acquiring an EV. And what they've been able to show is that when you put those three things together, you get a synergy between them where the financial benefit to the homeowner and the car owner is greater by putting those three things together than doing any one of them by themselves. And so there's a really strong financial model for home solar combined with EV. Talking a bit about the big picture, what's happening across the Southwest to promote electric vehicles. We do a state government report card each year that covers the 6 Southwestern states that looks at the range of policies. And a few years ago, most of the states in the Southwest were somewhere between a C- and an F. We now have states really moving up, and in particular, Utah has moved up to a B+ in the last couple of years. We don't have any A+ out there. On an A+, you sort of have to move to that place no one likes to talk about out on the West Coast to really find the A+. But in the Southwest, we've got a bunch of states that are moving up. Blake talked about the $1,500 tax credit that was passed last year and the deregulation of resale of electricity for EV charging. There's legislation this year to extend that $1,500 tax credit. There's another bill out there, HB 1410, that would expand the use of what's called energy performance contracting. It's a way that local governments and universities and state agencies can finance building energy improvements. It would expand that model to include vehicles, which is actually, I think that there's a huge opportunity there. In the last couple of years, this new business model has emerged of private sector entities that can work with local institutions to do large-scale fleet replacement. The biggest project by far is in the city of Indianapolis, where a company called Vision Fleet Capital was able to work with Indianapolis and essentially finance doing 400 electric vehicles into their fleet. So not doing the 1 or 2 or 3 vehicles at a time, but really large scale. And I think that model is coming to this part of the world. So HB 410 can be really important for helping to enable that model. And if anybody out there is with a local government or university, would encourage you to talk to a company like Vision Fleet or Fleet Karma, because they're wanting to do stuff in the Intermountain West now. There may also be legislation moving forward this year to help create additional public funding for electric vehicle charging. One of the things that I think is really exciting and a real opportunity for both Utah and Colorado is to look at working together across state lines to create some long-distance electric highway corridors. Most charging is going to happen at home or at work, but in order for people to have the confidence to buy electric vehicles, it's important that they know they can get where they need to go with their EV. And so having DC fast charging along those long-distance corridors is really important. We're seeing some other states that are doing this. The biggest project right now is Interstate 5, basically from Vancouver down to Southern California. This is moving forward, and I think the time is right to be looking at it for I-70 and I-15. What I think I want to close with is talking a little bit about the role of electric utilities. And so far, most of the utilities around the country have just been kind of watching electric vehicles and trying to figure out, is this something that's really going to grow and that we should really be paying attention to? Does it cause a problem for a grid? But over the last year or two, electric utilities have really begun to, I think, look at EVs in a different way. As utilities are out there figuring out what they're going to do about the fact that energy efficiency is cutting their growth in sales, home solar and business solar may be cutting into their their market. EVs are one place where you could really add electricity use, add demand in a way that a lot of people won't be fighting you, they'll be supporting you. And Edison Electric came out with a report this summer. I think the bottom line is that the electric utility industry needs the electrification of the transportation sector to remain viable over the long term. And we're starting to see that there are utilities that are really investing in this. So there are a dozen utilities out there that are investing directly into residential and commercial charging. There are a handful of utilities that are providing rebates to customers for acquiring electric vehicles. In California, there's sort of huge action happening right now where the three largest utilities, Pacific Gas and Electric, Southern Cal Edison, and San Diego Gas and Electric, are proposing right now enormous investments to support the electric vehicle market. These are submissions that are happening to the California Public Utilities Commission for about $1 billion of investment to support about 60,000 chargers. So I think the utility industry has a real opportunity to take this to scale and to help electric vehicles go from sort of the early adopters in that initial niche market to being a huge part of the base transportation infrastructure. And going forward, I think in all of the southwestern states, sort of the conversation with utilities about the role that they're going to play, I think going to be very important. And with that, I'll just close by saying that coming from Boulder, Colorado, we've got a friendly competition going with Salt Lake, where the Nissan dealer in Salt Lake and the Nissan dealer in Boulder, they keep alternating in terms of which one is selling the most Nissan Leafs outside of the West Coast and the East Coast. I'm not sure who's ahead right now, but I want them both to win.
I think it is. Yeah. So, that's okay. Okay, so if I'm you guys, I wonder what the heck is a box guy doing up there? Anyway, these guys wanted me to talk about Leaders for Clean Air in 10 minutes, and I can do it in a minute. So I'm going to tell you my story and how I got to where I'm at. I grew up in Salt Lake, went to East High School, went to the University of Utah, was on the 6-year ski program up there. That was more skiing than going to school. Graduated and told my dad I was going to go run the Grand Canyon, and he said, go get a job. So I went to Chicago and I got a job, and they said you have to go to Los Angeles first to train. So this was paperboard. I was selling paperboard. So I went to Los Angeles, which I did not want to live in, and the office was in Laguna Hills, and rapidly found out that Laguna Hills is not Los Angeles. So I moved there in '88. And the air quality was horrible. I'm an outdoorsy guy, and I like to ride my bike. And several times went for rides and got my lungs burned. And over the 10 years that I lived there, I literally watched them clean up the air. So I kind of knew that coming home, that this was a problem we could deal with. It takes hard work, but it can be dealt with. So came back into the family business. We had 5 locations we were manufacturing out of. We had trucks going all over the valley. And my dad had made a ton of money in real estate, but Utah Paper Box was not efficient. So decided that we needed to get under one roof. So we did a lot of looking around and finally found where our finishing plant was, some land on either side of us so we could build. So in '08, we built our first building, and I wanted to build it LEED certified. And I went to the meeting with the contractor, and I got completely stonewalled. And my dad shot everything down, and it didn't get to be built LEED certified. Turns out, we built a LEED certified building, we just didn't certify it. So in 2012, when it was time to build our corporate headquarters and our print facility,
we had the same meeting with the same contractor, and I came loaded, and I was ready. And so in the meeting, the contractor really didn't want to do it. My dad was saying nobody knows what LEED certified is. It's going to be an extra $1 million, but ultimately I prevailed. And the funny thing is, the contractor said, well, great, then it's going to have a white roof. I said, was a white roof an option on the other one? Yeah, it's no extra money. Now, you know, we live in an area where a white roof is pretty handy and is pretty efficient. So we build the building. In the meantime, I was following the development of the Volt and went to Jerry Seiner's Chevrolet and said, is there a waiting list for the Volt? And this is in 2008. And he said no, and I said, you get a piece of paper out. So my name was number 1 at Jerry Seiner for a Volt. So in building a LEED certified building, one of the options was electric charging stations. Well, I had the Volt on order, and well, I didn't have it on order, I was on the wait list, but I knew I was going to get it, and so I said, hey, let's go big. So we installed in 2012 5 EV charging stations. So Jerry Seiner gets the Volt, which is his personal Volt, and the sales guy says, no, that's not your Volt. That's Steve Kaiser's Volt. So I got the Volt, I had the charging stations. Then we moved all the presses over, we moved our employees over. Our employees started buying EVs. So we now have 6 EVs that plug into this. So in the meantime, my sister goes to work for a company called Pack Size. And a guy by the name of Hanko Kastner, I think I'm saying his name right, who also happens to be my neighbor, is also kind of an EV crazy guy that at the time he was buying a lot of Priuses for his sales force. So I got my Volt and I went to Hanko's house and I took him for a ride, and he had a Volt 2 weeks later. So Hanko gets the bug, he installs all these charging stations. So the two of us are now living on the same street, driving, we have solar, I have solar on my house. He has a lot of solar on his house. He actually pays to the grid. He never pays a power bill, but he actually gives more to the grid than he buys. So anyway, Hanko and I get together and we're like, more businesses should be doing this. How can we perpetuate this? So we come up with this crazy idea to buy some level 2 chargers and just start passing them out to different businesses. So we went to 3form. We gave Tally Goodson one, and he ended up installing like 7. We went to Black Diamond, and they installed 1. We went to Petzl, and they installed 1. And then we said, I think we're onto something, because basically people are starting to give because it was such a pay-it-forward model. So people install it, and then we get another charger, a check. So we're like, I think we're onto something. So he did a website, which is leadersforcleanair.org, and we launched this thing up at the Capitol, and it's a lot bigger than both of us. I mean, we have lots of requests for lots of level 2. So I hired a sales gal recently who graduated from the University of Utah, and she doesn't know anything, but she has an environmental degree. So last week, she's now Leaders for Clean Air. I'm not sure I think she's happy about it. So anyway, that's how I'm standing before you. Kind of a crazy story, but I also drove the Volt for 3 years and got a Tesla in April. And I have 18,000 miles on the Tesla. I've driven it to Denver, I've driven it to St. George 3 times, down to Moab. And I can testify to you guys that EVs are better. My Volt, 1 oil change in 50,000 miles. My wife now drives it. So that's my story. If you're a business or know someone who wants a level 2 charger, then just hit Leaders for Clean Air, and Port Corinne will get an email from you. And as long as you're willing to pay it forward to the next person, we'll bring a level 2 charger to you. So that's it.
Okay, we're all in the room. It's electric vehicle charging station topic, right? Or electric vehicles. Who here drives an EV? Okay, who here wants to drive an EV? Okay, why? You guys put your hands up. Are you not driving an EV? Let me know. A couple reasons. Range. Okay, what else? Expensive. You know, you can get one full, at least in California, for $13,000. So they're not as expensive as you think. If you haven't looked at EV prices in a while, don't let that stop you. Go and look. You can probably get one in your budget, your price range. All right. So I heard range. So that's a big reason why people don't want to get EVs. So my name's Monica. I'm from Energy EVgo. Energy is a really big power generation company. Have you guys ever seen that huge solar field out near Vegas called Ivanpah? Okay, that's Energy. So Energy, huge power generation company, huge renewable, the largest renewable portfolio. So we're not just a company that's coming in and building charging stations. We truly believe in renewable sources. We are a Fortune, it was said earlier, Fortune 500. We're actually a Fortune 250 company now, really large. We've reduced our actual emissions by half in 10 years. So really great company. What are the different charging levels? Okay, so you've heard these different things about level 2 charging. Will kind of talked about DC fast charging. So there's 3 different kinds of chargings. One, you can do at your house, 110. If you're going to charge your Nissan Leaf, it's going to take you about 20 hours. That's not very practical in all scenarios. Level 2 charging, that is going to be a little bit faster. You can get a full charge in 4 to 5 hours. That's great to do when you're at home while you're sleeping. You wake up in the morning, your car's fully charged. But what happens when you're driving around and you use all your battery and you don't have 4 or 5 hours to kill to get a new charge? That's when DC fast charging comes in. We can get you at almost 80% in 30 minutes or less. So you can extend your range and do it very quickly, so you're not wasting a lot of time. There was a study done back in 2007, 2008, when one DC fast charger was installed in an area. And you can see the 2007 graph. It's very messy, but those black and red dots next to the pink square, that's where people would drive, because there was one DC fast charger. When they came back, they never let, which is the graph below it, they never let their battery get below 50%. Why? Because they were terrified of range anxiety. What am I going to do if I can't charge my car? In 2008, this is a study in Japan, they installed a second DC fast charger. People drove further, didn't use the second DC fast charger, came back with lower percent on their battery. So installing that DC fast charger actually encouraged people to use their vehicle more, gave them that range confidence, but that didn't necessarily mean that they had to charge it. And that's where my company has based our model off of, where we install DC fast charging. Of course, we want people to use it because we charge them to use it, but if you don't take away that barrier of range anxiety, then the adoption takes a lot longer. The other reason why we like to install DC fast charging is it's the preferred option by drivers. No PowerPoint is a good PowerPoint without a slide that you can't see. So the point of this slide that you can't see is our location number 3 is the busiest location of any charging station in the United States. It happens to be run by my company. And in December of last year, we had 800 charges on our DC fast charger. And on our level 2 charger at the same station, we had 338. People would much rather do DC fast charging so they can be in and out somewhere quick and use their vehicle more. It's in San Francisco. That's all I can say. So the other thing my company has done is we have partnered. We did one dealership in Dallas or in Houston, Texas, and we offered 1 year free charging if you purchase a Nissan Leaf, and we call it no charge to charge. That dealership saw such an increase in sales that Nissan launched a national program to offer 2 years of free charging to anybody that purchases a Nissan Leaf in select markets. When that program is implemented, when you're looking at the national average of Leaf sales in any market that doesn't have no charge to charge, in Atlanta, their sales were 127% higher. In Chicago, 122% higher. This is compared to Nissan resales that offer no charge and that don't. Houston was 173% and Mid-Atlantic was 87%. So what this also does is increase the sales, and this gives you that free charging is mainly if people are using the DC fast charger. Salt Lake City is on that list, an up and coming list. We need to build 7 of these DC fast chargers in your area. And once we do that, then Nissan will offer 2 years of free charging. So then you guys won't have an excuse. It'll be cheaper. You'll get free fuel. You'll have range confidence, right? So next year I'll ask that question and everyone will say, I drive a EV? No? Okay. We got one guy. All right. That's it. Thank you.
My experience is, well, it was $1 a day. But, like Candy Gate, a lot of people that get an EV solar on their back. So, but it's about $1 a day. The Tesla is $8 to charge, and that's about 250 miles.
Also, there's a lot of free charging opportunities out in public.
Anybody else?
Just any thoughts on Tesla's opportunity to sell and sell those to EV, not legal currently, but
There's a bill that's being fast tracked. They're trying to open the dealership tomorrow. So the superchargers are done. I think so. I mean, it's really ridiculous that you can't buy a car. I can tell you, buying a car online is the best experience you'll ever have. You're not worried about the deal you got. Everybody pays the same. My car came on a flatbed at 9:30 at night. They handed me 2 fobs and drove off. What do I do with this thing? It's great.
Because something I would throw in there. There have been these battles in multiple states across the country over Tesla coming in with this new model of how you can sell automobiles. And obviously there's differences of opinion between Tesla and the traditional auto dealers over this. But one thing, I think Tesla really has done a great job of shaking up the market and of moving EVs. And what I would say to the auto dealers is what you need to do is step up your game on selling electric vehicles. Rather than trying to quash Tesla, the auto dealers should embrace Tesla and then should step up their game. Consumer Reports did an analysis across the state or across the country where they sent buyers in looking for electric vehicles. What they found was that at most dealerships, the dealers tried to talk them out of buying an EV. The dealers didn't understand electric vehicles. It was something that was new to them. So having dealers who really get EVs and are going to try to move them is huge to making the market work. And one of the things that I think is really important is to figure out how to get training for dealers and salespeople, how to recognize those dealers who are really doing a great job. And one of the things that some places are looking at is some of the utilities are looking at creating midstream incentives where they actually give a little bit of money for each EV that gets sold, because it takes a fairly big tax credit to impact a consumer decision, but dealers don't actually make that much money on each car that they sell. So if you're able to add a couple $100s to what they make when they sell an EV, that's actually a significant incentive. So I think that whole piece of figuring out how to get the dealers really excited and engaged in selling EVs is huge to really move in the market.
I actually had somebody say to me, I can't believe you want a car and there's no dealership to take it to. And I said, for what? You know, I mean, I don't need an oil change. I don't have a transmission. I mean, there's nothing that can really, I mean, there's some things can go wrong with the car, obviously, but probably not very often. I had a service ranger come by in a truck in my garage, opened up the back seat, looked at the inverter to make sure it was right because they were having some problems with it. That's the only thing that has had to happen with the car. So one of the things you need to think about when you own an electric car is that you're not traditionally going to have to go to the dealer like you do now. You know, there's no reason to go, and that's part of the beauty of it. It's also really nice not to have to go to the gas station. And I'm not talking about getting your credit card out. I'm just talking the physical act of going to the gas station.
Having technology, how long these things last, what happens when you're and what's the technology?
I can take it. Look, there have been some instances with Nissan Leafs in Arizona where some owners have lost some range. Nissan has stepped up and replaced the batteries. I've lost 4 miles of range in a year on my Tesla. That's it. My Volt, which my wife now drives, I've seen no battery degradation on it. There is an argument out there that the batteries should be cooled somehow. And the Volt is cooled and the Tesla is cooled. Nissan is not. But I would recommend that if you did get a Nissan, that you lease it, because at the end of the lease you walk away. And there are leases on those Leafs now for a couple $100. Yeah, $199. So if you lease it, it's not your problem. That answer your question? Well, there's not a lot of them out there yet, but one of the things that I've been reading is that spent batteries might go on homes, because a spent battery is like considered 70% of life. Well, if you have a solar system on your house, you take that old battery and you hook it into the solar system, and then you have a backup source for energy if the grid goes down. That's what I've read.
There's a debate on the ramifications of using fast charging on the batteries. When you plug into the charger, it ramps up really high, and then the longer you're there, it starts to slow down. So by the time you get to 80%, maybe even 90%, you're now pulling what a level 2 would pull. The other day, I saw somebody charging, they were like 95%, they were pulling 7 amps at 440. So it's going to slow down because it's going to pull the battery. I don't have home charging. I've been driving my Nissan Leaf. I'm at 22,500 miles, and I pretty much 99.9% of the time fast charge. I've done those miles in just over a year, and I have lost 0 range on my vehicle, and I still have a full battery. I can't speak to the technology. I can only speak from my experience.
I would just add that Idaho National Lab has done some testing where they've run batteries, multiple times through fast charge cycles and discharge cycles, and they really haven't seen any negative impact from the fast charging.
I'm very interested in the interplay between electric vehicles and the grid. And I know that on the East Coast there was some study projects being done, and I've just heard recently that California now is starting to play with some of the utilities paying electric vehicle owners to be able to draw from their batteries. Does anything have any information on that?
I can only speak to the fact that you're going to have the manufacturers on board with that. Because if you've got an 8-year warranty on a battery and you're letting the grid take from the battery and put back in the battery, what does that do to your warranty? So I think we've got a ways to go on that one. I think it is the future, but battery technology is probably got to get better so that the OEMs have confidence that those batteries will last.
Yeah, and a lot of that research is being led out at the University of Delaware. And I think probably the just immediate opportunity with the interface or the nexus between EVs and the grid is to incentivize home charging time of use plans so that because of those warranty issues, this could be a way to help flatten your load and be a grid asset by charging after peak hours in the